Alright, so I plugged in that memory card, the little SD card that I made in the previous video, and I took that SD card and I popped it into my Raspberry Pi, plugged in my Raspberry Pi into a monitor, attached a keyboard and a mouse, booted it up, and I'm here. So this is I logged in with my default username and password, and let's go through the whole process of getting this configured. Because, oh, by the way, if you don't remember what the default username and password is, the username is Pi and the password's Raspberry. I'll put that in the description. So we're going to click OK on that, and we're going to go through some screens to just do some initial configuration. So we're going to be changing our country to the United States. Our language is American English. Our time zone is going to be in Los Angeles. There it is, L. Because I'm in California, choose whatever time zone you're in. I'm going to use a US keyboard. Use English language. Hit next. It's going to, because the Raspberry Pi is a little slow, I'm using a Raspberry Pi 3, so it's a little bit sluggish, so it has to now rebuild the locale, so this might take a minute or two. Great. I'm not going to change my password. I'm going to leave it as Pi as the username and Raspberry as the password. I'm just going to ignore this. The screen looks okay. And I've just got to pause recording here because I've got an angry customer. Okay, so she wanted to be let in on the action. The next phase is you're going to be picking up your Wi-Fi network. I've already attached my Raspberry Pi to a wired network, so I don't need to get onto the Wi-Fi network, but you'd select whichever one of these, whatever network shows up, that's yours. If you don't see your network, probably move closer to your base station, or it might be hidden. And you might need to get some help. So contact an instructor, professor, friend, get on Slack, ask that question. So I'm going to skip this step because I'm already using Ethernet. Now, we need to update the software. Sure, I'll do that now. So I'll hit next. And now this might run for a while. It has to go out onto the interwebs, grab a list of all the software that is available, compare that against the software that we have on the computer, and then download new software to get the computer all updated. While this is going on, I can do other stuff. So I want to draw our attention to the user interface. We've got a clock, speakers. This is telling me that I'm connected with Ethernet. And over here we've got this menu that if I click it, and eventually it should show me some icons that'll give me different apps I can use. I've got programming tools already built in. We're going to add more to that. We've got some stuff for electronics, I guess. You've got your basic Office suite. You can go through all this and find cool stuff. Preferences will have stuff about setting up your mouse and appearance and all that good stuff. But what I want is the terminal. And what you probably want is the file browser. So those two icons are there. It's just like the Finder in Macintosh or Windows Explorer. You move around, double click on folders here. And this is just a bash shell, so you can type in commands and have them happen. So right now this is working, and I'm going to let that run, and then we'll pick up where it leaves off. Alright, so the installation is almost done, and we can get going with doing the stuff about setting up our Raspberry Pi to have all the Tuffix stuff. Great, now it's up to date. And we can restart later. I do need my terminal. The text is a little bit small here, so I'm going to see if I can make it bigger. Let's make it 18. Great. Now it's nice and big so that you can see what's going on. I'll make this window a little bit larger if I can get my mouse to grab a hold of it. I like to have the terminals at 80 by 24 because that's the traditional size of our DEC VT100. 80 characters wide by 24 characters. Okay, I've got my OS set up by going through the different steps, but I want to add the Tuffix stuff. I've got a special Tuffix script set up, and I'm going to write this in the description because it's a pretty long command, but I've got the Tuffix script set up specifically for Raspberry Pis. So I'm going to type that out. And don't panic, this is in the description, so just look in the description and you can copy and paste this directly, or write it down and re-copy it back into your terminal, because I don't think you're going to be able to copy and paste it. But it is a long command, because we're going to grab something from GitHub, and it is telling a script what to install for our Tuffix setup. So that's the custom script I made for our Raspberry Pis, and then we're going to use the regular command that shows up in the instructions for setting up Tuffix. So that's a -O, and that's another dash, and this is the bar character or pipe character that's right over the enter key on the keyboard. And now we're off. So this is going to be very similar to the process that I did earlier using a regular PC, and I used the regular script. Here I've just customized the process a little bit so that it installs software that is that exists on the Raspberry Pi system, or the Raspbian system. I'm going to play this out in real time, and I'm not going to edit it, so that you can see the whole process. So if at home, if you get something that's different and you're not sure about it, you can very slowly go through the video and make sure that what you see is reasonable. And I just noticed a small error. So I recommend that after it prompts you to reboot. That would be the better thing to do. It's not the end of the world, but I should have rebooted because I saw a small error that could have been taken care of had I rebooted the computer. So the first phase of 3 phases for installing the Tuffix software is almost done. The next phase is automated. It's going to now kick off another program and install additional software as soon as the progress bar hits 100%. And here we go into the second phase, where it's grabbing a script and it's going to run that. Okay, we're all done. We've got the software installed. Now, one of the gotchas is with the Raspberry Pi, because it's not an AMD 64 or an i386 processor, not all the software is available that's available to other computers because it's an ARM processor. So I want you to have a text editor. And the text editor that we've kind of picked was Atom, but Atom's not available for ARM processors. VS Code's available, but VS Code is not available directly from Microsoft. Instead, somebody's built it for ARM. And so the next step is to install VS Code, or at least the open source version of it, built by a nice soul who's posted online. So the next command is to grab that. And again, I'll put this link in the description. There's a dash capital O, and then another dash, and then a bar, or pipe character, just like I did before. Okay, so it's installed. Now let's take a look at how we can use this computer. So we've got our terminal. We saw that. It's a little place up there. Oh, before we move on, maybe you want to add, maybe you don't want to use Pi as your username. If you want to add a user, that'll be you. You can just say add user, and I like to use mshafei. That's the username I use all over the place. So I say add user mshafei. Ah, I forgot to say sudo. And don't worry about the error messages. When you reboot, that'll go away. So my new password, I'll type that in. My full name. Don't need a room number. Forget about phones, other, doesn't matter. Is that information correct? Yep. Great. So I've made an account for myself. So the next time it reboots, I'll be able to log in as myself from the login prompt. Now, before we do that, let's take a tour of how we can do some compiling and other things like that. So underneath programming, there's now this Code OSS. Code OSS is VS Code. It's just the open source version of VS Code. So if you click it, and again, I'm using a Raspberry Pi, so it's a little bit, well, actually, it's a lot slower than a Raspberry Pi 4. But if you have a Raspberry Pi 4, the performance should be reasonable. And you'll get what looks like VS Code with some slight differences. It won't be branded with Microsoft stuff. But it'll work and act the same way. Great. So I'm going to make a new file. And I'm going to write a C program, or C++ program. That looks about right. Got myself a nice little program. I'm going to go up to the File menu. I'll save this, or let's say save as, so I can select a name. And I'm going to put it in my Documents directory. Actually, no, I'll put it in a new folder. Is there a way for me to make a new folder here? Yeah, right here. So I can click this. I'm going to call this CPSC 101. And inside of CPSC 101, I'm going to call this file hello_world.cpp. Remember, we don't like spaces in our file names or our directories. Great, so that's saved. Now let's try compiling it. Oh, did you see that? It color-coded all the text because now it knows it's C++ code and tells us where it is on our computer. So here, I type pwd and type ls. Oh yeah, I see CPSC 101, my make-believe class that I've made a folder for it. And there's the file. So let me try compiling it. So I say clang ++ hello world. And sure enough, it compiled something. And it works. So I just did my first program. So I've verified that my compiler works. I've verified I have a text editor that I can save files. I can navigate the system using the command line. And if I'd like, I can also look at files and folders through this file browser here. Now, you got to treat your Raspberry Pi like any other computer. So if you want to turn it off or reboot or anything else like that, you got to use the menus to shut down, to reboot, to log in, or log out. So if I say log out right now, it should log out. Maybe it's not gonna. Okay, I think, oh, here we go. I've logged out. So now, on our menu, when we go to the login prompt, we have myself and we have Pi. Remember, the password for Pi is Raspberry, and I made this one my own account from the Pi account so I can have my own stuff. So now I can log in with that one. Open a terminal. I'm in business. I can get stuff done. So I think that brings us to an end. In one video, I burned the image. In this video, we got everything installed and we've shown that we can get things to work. And in the description, I'll provide those commands that I use to get the Tuffix software and the open source version of VS Code installed.